In Russia, anti-war demonstrators are paying tribute to Ukrainian civilians killed earlier this month by that massive Russian airstrike earlier in Dnipro. As Briar Stewart tells us, the protests are in defiance of an unrelenting Kremlin crackdown.
I mean, you have a number of makeshift memorials that have popped up across Russia, including in St. Petersburg and Moscow, and they've popped up in response to the deadly attack in Dnipro earlier this month, where a missile struck an apartment building, killing at least 46 people, injuring dozens of others. Now, after that attack, people started showing up at different places in these cities, leaving flowers and stuffed animals. And in Moscow, they turned up to a statue dedicated to a famous Ukrainian playwright, Lesia Ukrainka. And so they turned up there, leaving things, in some cases saying prayers. And when they did that, they were under the watchful eye of the police. In fact, a police van was parked right nearby. And human rights groups say at least 6 Russians have been detained for turning up at the memorial in Moscow. And because even though people are there to show their sympathy, the Russian government takes that as a direct criticism of them and the war in Ukraine. So that's why people have been detained. We understand in one case, a young woman was actually sent to jail for 12 days. And I spoke with a human rights group, Vesna, about this, and she just said the fact that authorities are going after people that are expressing grief and sympathy really just shows the level of repression right now in Russia.
That's a memorial, and even this is scaring the government, the police so much. So they started arresting people who are just walking with flowers, with toys, and with some photos of this terrible event. And what surprised me most, to be honest, is that this is still ongoing.
And when she says ongoing, what she means is that the authorities have actually gone and cleared away the statue, taken everything away, but people have continued to turn up and to lay more flowers.
Briar, as I was mentioning, it is almost a year now into Russia's war in Ukraine. Any form of anti-war protest, we know, has been banned for months. But what do we know about the scale of the Russian crackdown?
Well, human rights groups have been trying to track just the number of people that have been targeted. And so far, more than 5,500 people have received fines for anti-war protests of some kind, and several hundred have faced criminal charges. Now, we spoke to one of those who have been fined. His name is Ivan Losev. He lives in Siberia. He actually studied in Toronto for a short time, and he was fined the equivalent of $600 Canadian for something that he put on Instagram. He was talking about a dream he had and how Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky showed up in his dream and thanked him for his anti-war posts. Well, he put that on Instagram, and in fact, it was only up there for 24 hours, but it was long enough for the authorities to notice it, and he was fined. So it really just shows, I guess, the level that the Russian government will go to really punish anybody that's not completely supportive of the war in Ukraine.
Briar Stewart from London.